Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-2-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self at KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio. And this is Dr. Mitra Rashidian. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist, offering you this program today along with my best friend, my colleague of 16 years, and my business partner, which we had a discussion, sweet discussion about it a few minutes ago. We're offering you this program, and we welcome you to our today's area of human sexual health.
Human sexual health, sexuality, relationships, how to deal with your partner, and how to have more loving, enjoyable connection, and including your sexuality. So happy to be here with my best friend and my partner, going on 17 years. And
not yet.
Not yet. We're not.
Don't flatter yourself.
Don't flatter myself. And so here we are, and we're about to share with you some of what we've learned over many years of study and practice on how to be more loving and more joyful every day of your life. And I think today's topic is how to bring more consciousness into our sexuality. Correct?
Yes, it is. And I would like to invite you all to please call us, share your perspective, and share your questions. Our number live is 951-922-3532. It's important for us to hear from you, because that way we're going to give you back some of what you want in the best way that we can offer it, on the phone. And at the same time, if you have private questions and you do not wish to discuss them online, please use our contact information, which is available at the radio station, and contact us that way. We are happy to help you to the best that is possible. With respect to the, COVID-19 and distancing and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And yes, so we kind of started jokingly talking about the 17-year. Going back to the 16, I like to really say that I don't know how to explain the sense of gratitude that I have, for what you and I have built together. It's just that, we share so many things common, in our practice and personally as well, that help us to develop what we have. And we're sharing that publicly with everybody. And it is definitely reflecting in our books that we are writing, our book that is almost there to be published, called, Not Tonight, Honey, I Have a Headache. That's going to be our ebook. So, and then the other one that we are pending, time to get to that one. That's a work in progress, of course. And the title of that is The Subconscious Runs the Show. So, and everything in these two books, plus everything else that we say, our programs, it's a reflection of our combined clinical experiences, our personality, research, and everything that we have done, and all the life experiences that have made us who we are today. And, it's a blessing to be next to a person that I feel safe with, that I feel good about myself, and I, continue to learn from you. And, to be the person that I have become today, and to be a better person tomorrow.
Well, thank you. And likewise, I feel blessed to have you in my life.
Thank you.
And I continue to learn from you, as we just did right before the show started. I learned something about myself. So thank you for being my partner, my friend, and joining me in our quest to enlighten ourselves and enlighten other people, to make the world a lighter place to live in.
Exactly. Yes. And that's our mission. That's what we love to do, and that's what we will continue to do, and that's what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So you introduced the topic. Thank you. How to bring more consciousness to our sexuality. And why did I come up with this topic is because recently I did have this experience in the past, and it didn't happen for a while. However, I see it happening again. And that's, when couples come in and, they have sexual problems, usually when I interview the female partner, they say, you know what, I want to do this, or I want to be better. I want to, change myself. I want to, go on a diet. I want to, there is so many things I want to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end they say, because I want to make him happy.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. They make it all about, their partner. It is as though their mission is to make their partner happy and satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And some of or none of what they say about they want to change about themselves is actually has to do with them. Mm-hmm. And their curiosity about, their sexuality, which they couldn't, connect to, and due to a variety of factors such as shame and guilt and sinfulness about looking themselves as a sexual being.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And sexuality is something that is so powerful, right, and so profound in every human being's life. And it is also shrouded in mystery, myths, and misconceptions. And it's also, because it's so powerful, it's a powerful way of affecting another person, both positively and negatively, right, is through their sexuality. And so what we're here to do is we're here to demystify it, mm-hmm, and help people understand how to make their sexuality more visible in a healthy way to, yes, themselves and to their partners.
Exactly. So after a while, after a few conversations, after a few, finally getting comfortable with themselves, right? Kind of get comfortable, not even fully comfortable. They come and they say, reality is, I want to know myself as a sexual person, as a sexual woman. Mm-hmm. I don't know what exactly that means, right? Mm-hmm. And they're telling the truth, because nobody really sat down and teach them, say, okay, what is sex? What's the definition of sex? What is the definition of sexuality? What is the definition of sexual health? What exactly sexuality, includes? What is sexual compatibility? What is many of the questions that you and I have included in our book, mm-hmm, right? Mm-hmm. So our book is, it's a combination of many questions that we have been asked, and then many of the related answers that we have found, scientifically, clinically, personally, all of that. And then, that's why, I thought it's a good question to ask, to bring up, to why women are not so conscious about sexuality, but men are more conscious that way.
Men are more conscious, but men have issues with sexuality. I think it's more common for women to have issues, but men do have issues, and men often don't understand that they do have issues. So if they have something that's going on with them sexually, it's easy for them to project it onto a woman, to say that she's not, or she isn't, or why won't she, or this or that, rather than taking a look at what's going on inside of them. So it's both men and women who struggle with their sexuality in our society.
Yes. So so sex therapy, last week we talked about, what is sex therapy, right? And then, so again, I'm just going to briefly talk about that. So sex therapy basically is a type of therapy that allows women to reconnect, with their femininity, sexuality, and the much deeper part of, you know, their self-acceptance, right? It's a talk therapy. And the same applies to men, by the way. You know, when we say, you know, sex therapy, obviously there are many men who go to sex therapy as well, right?
Yes.
But primarily, you know, the first thing that comes to mind is a couple therapy with the men either have, you know, premature ejaculation or women having low desire or no desire. But
those are the two of the common
Those are
ones.
the two common ones. And of course, we know that any sexual problems, you know, brings relationship problem. Any relationship problem brings sexual problems, right? So we know all of that by now. And so when we look at, you know, why we are living in a most modern era of human being life, 21st century, right? We have all this technology. We have all these amazing educational, you know, opportunities, right? We have all these books and tapes and CDs and online and web, you know, all these workshops and all of that. Why there is still, you know, women are struggling with their sexuality. And of course, when we say that, depends, of course, you know, our upbringing, depends on the culture, depending on the religions, you know, experiences and everything. These can have, you know, plus minus intensity to it, obviously, right? A woman who is, you know, born and raised, for example, in Europe is not going to have the same experience of, you know, sexual inhibition or sexual unconsciousness about who they are as a sexual being is not the same as somebody who was raised and born in, for example, some areas of Asia or Middle East or, you know, or Africa. So everybody, depending on their cultures, wherever they are, that situation, you know, has a definitely impact on their, you know, conscious or subconscious understanding of their sexuality and sexual self. However, one thing that's definitely, you know, for sure is generally experienced by majority of women, and this has nothing to do with their cultural background, right? Is the issue of, you know, sexual shame, right? Which is so deeply rooted, right? And it doesn't matter, you know, once there is sexual shame, there are sexual problems attached to it.
Correct.
There are sexual challenges attached to it, right? So how basically sexual shame happens? Sexual shame initially happens by when, you know, women are told, you know, that forget about down there. Basically, down there is a it can, of course, it translates in different languages, you know, but it is still all has the same meaning of down there, as though down there is a somewhere that needs to be locked up, kept in the dark, and nobody needs to know about it. Nobody must talk about it.
Right.
It's such a prohibited area.
Down there, meaning the vagina.
The vagina.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And then so sexual shame basically, you know, passes through generation to generation. It passes through, you know, mother to daughter, from generation to one generation, from grandma to the mother to the child, you know, and then the child transfers that to the grandchild, and so on and so on and so on, right? And for centuries, women, you know, have depended basically, you know, to use their sexuality also somehow as a matter of survival, right? How can they be safe using their sexuality, and how not to use their sexuality to feel safe, or to what extent they can be sexual, you know, apparently, and to what degree they have to hide their sexuality, you know, how to do sexual expression or what to say about their sexual expression. And like you and I were talking before the program, nobody really sits down and teach women about their sexuality.
Right.
And nobody also sits down and teach men about their sexuality. So for the most part, all of us, or most of us, are self-taught about what our sexuality is, how to feel about it, how to express it, and what to do with it based on what we think our sexuality is.
Yeah, I want to add, I think that we're self-taught, but what we learn is not just coming out of our own thoughts.
Right.
What we learn is usually coming out of our culture, right? And perhaps the books that we've read or the movies that we've seen, which is also the culture, right?
Right.
So what we've learned is how to act and be female amongst other females, how to be male amongst other males, how males are supposed to act with females and how females are supposed to act with males. And so from that, we form our own idea of what our sexuality is and should be. And none of that is necessarily has to do with facts. It has to do with beliefs.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk more about this after our commercial break. Please continue to join us. 3 to 4 p.m. Please join us. Thank you. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert are here. Welcome back. Our topic today is how to bring more consciousness to our sexuality. And why we do that? Because we are explaining that right now, right?
Exactly.
So please call us 951-922-3532. And, we would appreciate if you introduce this program to those that you believe they can benefit from. And we are here to answer your questions. And anyway, so please call us. So before commercial break, we were talking about, sexual shame and how that, transfers to the next person through generational factors, right? Mm-hmm. My grandma taught my mom how to be a sexual woman, mm-hmm. and I think she failed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My mom taught me how to be a sexual woman, and boy, she failed, mm-hmm. right? And I have taught how to my daughter how to be a sexual woman, and I yet to know the result, right?
Right.
Right. So whatever, negativity or positively my great-great-grandma had and passed it to my grandma and to my mom and to myself, we feel that, yes, do I have some level of sexual shame? Absolutely, even as a sex therapist. Mm-hmm. Yes. So because those are so deeply rooted, those are so deeply engraved, they become such a part of our subconscious blueprint. And we just, everything that we want to do, that blueprint, shows up because subconscious is timeless and then takes over, right? There are times myself when I want to introduce a topic, I stop and I think twice. I say, do I want to say that on air, Mm-hmm. And then even my friends, they come to me and they say, Mitra, how can you talk like that? Shame on you, we can't believe that you have that side that we don't know about, Mm-hmm. But, and then I say, what side? What are you talking about, mm-hmm. right? And then, so it's normal for me to experience some level of shame, even though I'm a trained professional and a clinician in this area with years of experience. But that's what I mean by so deeply, engraved. That's how deeply they are seated in our and rooted in our mind.
It's deeply ingrained in our subconscious minds.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just stay there. I mean, it's also in our conscious minds, and it comes out all the time through our behaviors.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so, what are some of the what happens when women and men, but what happens when people have sexual shame? How does that affect them?
Well, for one thing, they can't be themselves in the sexual relationship. So mm-hmm. exactly what that means. It means they cannot be expressive about what works for them or not. They cannot be expressive about what gives them pleasure And to begin with, do they know what gives them pleasure?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It basically, the shame, covers all the wants, all the joy, all the expression, all the practices, many things that brings, creates that sexual compatibility will go into hiding, even though if two people can be sexual compatible.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the shame, whether it's one-sided or both sides, then the ability to understand each other in a sexual relationship goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And the end result is, argument, unhappy sexual relationship. Couples complain, our sexual practices is so routine, is always the same, it starts the same way, ends the same way, processes is the same way, and therefore it's so boring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where in fact, if they are able to talk about their sexual desires, what works for them, what doesn't, how they want to be treated in a sexual relationship, that definitely opens a new door,
right,
to them,
right.
And so when sexual shame, also happens, we want to see that how that, for example, controls a woman, and usually because of the hurt of being unable to talk about, how a woman can become satisfied sexually, and fear of being judged, and fear of many other factors, negative factors. They feel they are a victim in their relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what does a victim do? Or what do they do if victims, when they want to express their hurt, they want to express unhappiness, they want to express, that what is not working for them, instead of going to their sexuality, and that's so unconscious because they don't know that's the area that's suffering, right?
Mm-hmm.
They blame their male partner.
Right. They blame their male partner, or they get a headache.
Or they get a headache,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they usually try to, make their male partner or their partner in general, responsible for the, some of this subconscious shame that they are experiencing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then when that happens, of course, and their partner, they don't know what to do with that shame, because they are not trained professional to know even where this is coming from. Right. That's where the argument happens. That's where the rage happens. That's where the man says, I'll do all these things for you, and you never appreciate it, you never understand me, you never get me, all you want is this and that. And so the argument, they of course have many different shapes. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. But the story usually is the same thing. It's about their subconscious shame, and then conscious lack of satisfaction, and inability to feel that they can talk, or inability to believe that somebody can actually understand them. So this is some of what sexual shame does. And of course, the other thing that women, as a result of sexual shame, do is how much they pay attention to their body, and they believe that their body is good or not good. Mm-hmm. Right? So because of that, they do a variety of things for themselves, such as extreme diets, extreme cosmetic surgery. They pay attention to, how they can keep their genitalia area young and like a 15-year-old. There are so many systems are out there, which I'm not going to name, but women go through a variety of painful processes. Mm-hmm. in order to keep their body young and attractive, in order to satisfy their male partner, where in fact, all that, belief that they need to do the work is all about themselves. They want to know how they can understand their sexuality, but they don't give themselves permission because of shame. Mm-hmm. That this is about them, actually is not about their partner.
Right. Yeah. So when a person, a male or female, is carrying sexual shame, it can affect all areas of their life, not
Right.
just their sexual area.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so people can develop addictions, often eating disorders. People who are anorexic can be carrying a lot of sexual shame. And people also can have other kinds of addictions, which the addiction sort of distracts them from the feeling of shame, gets them feeling better temporarily, which is what all addictions do, but doesn't ever address the area or give them relief from that sexual shame that they've been carrying. And sexual shame can come, I know, from childhood experiences where a parent has shamed the girl about the way her body looks, or has made a big deal when she starts developing breasts, and she becomes very self-conscious. It can come from all different areas, right? As well, of course, as the more serious kind of things where there's sexual abuse.
Right. You know, it's interesting that you say that. It reminded me of a client a long time ago. She always used to wear, you know, very loose outfits, you know, and even though she had a fit body, she covered herself always underneath things that, you know, nobody can tell, you know, where her body is, right? Until they came to therapy, because her husband was so much fed up about all these fabrics around his, you know, his wife. That's what he said. There's so much fabric around her, I cannot reach her, right? So anyway, fast forward, it turned out that when she was growing up and she was developing and her breasts started to show up, her mother always ridiculed her, that she has such a big boobs, and that they were, so, you know, men are going to be attracted to her because of her breast, not because of her, and then she needs to hide them. So she started not only to wear very tight bras, but also she started to wear looser outfits, so that, you know, her body wouldn't, you know,
she wouldn't be showing her breast.
Showing her breast, yes. As a result of wearing very tight bra, you know, her spinal cord was damaged, right? Her back muscles, you know, below shoulder were kind of divided from each other, right? Because it was like somebody like, you know, cut them in half and put them together, right? And also there was always some marks of black and blue on her shoulder. And she also had shoulder pain. In addition to, you know, wearing all those fabrics around her, so that nobody can tell where her body was, you know. So the sexual shame, you know, makes women do incredible things, you know. And of course, the source of feeling powerless and then blaming their partner for that is one of the common situations where in fact, you know, nobody can make us feel anything without our own consent, right?
Yeah, and I want to add something to that, because like any rule, there are exceptions to the rule.
Right.
And one of the exceptions, of course, is when you're young, when you're a child. Because when you're a child, you are dependent on your parent, and you look up to your parent, and so the way your parent treats you, you respond accordingly to how the parent treats you. If the parent treats you lovingly, you feel loved and lovable. If the parent treats you unlovingly, you feel unloved and unlovable. And that's, of course, at the very basic level, but all sorts of things happen in terms of the way we're treated. So basically, when we're in a dependent stage, as we are as children, other people, adults, can make us feel things, and so as we grow older, if we don't recognize that we are allowing that to happen, then it still appears to us as though it's still happening. And so then we become afraid of other people because we believe they have power over us and they can make us feel a certain way. And that, of course, is something that is very, very difficult for somebody to learn and to overcome unless they actually get professional help. They still stay in that place where, he says to her, well, if you hadn't said this, I wouldn't have responded this way. And she says, well, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have responded this way. So each of them looking to the other to change how they are in order for the person to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the more that happens, the more they're caught in the codependent cycle.
Right. I actually have a couple right now that they definitely fall into the description that you just, provided. And, the couple, the husband believes that the wife orders him, sorry.
Mm.
For example, if she's asking for a glass of water, he gets offended.
Mm-hmm.
You're ordering me around, am I
Mm-hmm.
your busboy? Am I your, maid? Am I your butler? And then, but the wife says, I don't know what you're talking about. All I ask is for a glass of water, right?
Right.
But then again, we realize that that's not just asking for a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a routine between the two of them. So one demands, one needs to comply,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they both are coming up with a background of many issues from their childhood,
Right.
that prompts one to be demanding, the victim, I'm the victim,
Mm-hmm.
so you need to take care of me. And one feels that, he's being ordered around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they both do suffer from lack of affection in their childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So now it is like each partner is responsible to make up for that,
Right.
to make up for that loss.
Right. And I think that's a good place for us to stop. We just got notified, but also when you say that, basically what you're saying is we look to our partners to be the good mom or dad that we needed and maybe didn't have
At times.
At times, and when that happens, of course, our partners are burdened with a responsibility that really isn't theirs.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay, we continue with this beautiful discussion after our commercial break.
Okay. There.
Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 ABC News Radio. Today we're talking about, how we need to be conscious of our sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we were talking about, some of the examples, and the reality is, and when I learned this myself years ago, it was like a waking up kind of situation for me.
Mm.
I was reading this book by Michael Foucault, French
Mm-hmm.
philosopher who passed away a few years ago. And he's one of the very well famous, sexologists of the world. And one of the things he said in one of his books was that, our sexuality is a core part of our, ourself.
Mm-hmm.
Sexuality is a core part of a human being life,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I needed to read about that. I needed to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was also student myself, and I was just searching to literatures and to know more about what's out there about sexuality, human sexuality, relationships, and everything. And the reality is that after everything I study, I realized that our sexuality is a divine part of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But how we contaminated that divine process by shame,
Mm-hmm.
by the shame that is not even ours, but it has been imposed on us,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if we don't know that we are suffering from sexual shame, but we are experiencing desires and wants and certain things that we can identify them, because the shame doesn't allow us to identify them, and we never give ourselves permission to understand our sexuality, right? How can we expect our partner to be responsible to give us answers for all of that?
Right, and of course, I don't believe that it's a conscious expectation.
It's not a conscious,
It's
yeah.
a subconscious expectation based on an unmet need
Right.
that we never got filled as a child. And so it's it's a human response to having something unfulfilled within you, and you're looking to have it fulfilled. And it's a normal response to expect it from your partner, whether it's logical or illogical, or whether it's even fair or not.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things that, whether it's fair, whether it's not, whether it's logic, whether it's not logic. And then even women, when they think about their sexuality, they feel shameful themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they want to examine, their own genital area, which many women, for the fact we know that they don't know what their female genital, their vagina look like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's kind of, it's a breakthrough for many women when they pick up a mirror for the first time and wanting to do that.
Yes.
And they keep it in private. They don't even share it with anybody, that they have actually made an attempt to see themselves, But for men, that's not an issue,
Right.
For men, everything is so tangible and visual to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So therefore, they don't have a problem. They never had a problem because since their childhood, they were fully familiar with their, genital area. But for women, and because of the shame and the guilt and the fear and the sinfulness, they never make such an attempt until much later in life,
Mm-hmm.
right? For the most part, especially in closed cultures, for them to understand. And I know of many women that they refuse to go to their gynecologist,
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want, even a female gynecologist to touch them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there are many roadblocks, happening in life that not only, shadows the pleasure of sexuality, the joyfulness of sexuality, the understanding of our sexuality, but also, it can impact our health in so many ways.
You were just giving the example of the woman with the large breasts who was, wearing the tight bras and injured herself. Mm-hmm. And
Exactly.
that's just one example.
That's just one example. I mean, there was this movie that I once saw. I think it was called The Desert Flower.
Mm.
Yes, it was called The Desert Flower. Such a beautiful, amazing, very insightful, very very powerful and moving movie that I have ever seen, which was a story of this girl that she was raised in such a closed environment, and then how she went through vaginal mutilation at the age where she was before puberty, and she suffered through that process until she was healed, and she was planned to go through an arranged marriage where she was to be a bride of about 70-year-old man,
Mm-hmm.
right, when she was about 12,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she ran away from home. She ran away, and fast forward, this woman became, a beautiful model, but she always had so much physical pain in her genital area because of that, mutilation. So she finally went to a doctor, and then the doctor happened to be somebody from her area, home area, and they spoke the same language. So, and then she said to the doctor what happened and what's going on with her and how much pain she's experiencing. And the doctor says, how dare you say something about your native area, and people, and then question the culture, and you should be, so appreciative of how you're one of the examples of our, deep culture that to save women.
Mm-hmm.
So look at the difference of the perspective and how much shame and guilt, this doctor gave back to her again.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So the whole movie was about how to overcome the shame, how to overcome, the sexual abuse and all of that, that they are all happening as a result of shame around sex in different cultures, in different societies. Right. And similar to that, we have so many girls that they are living in the United States and they are going through all of that suffering. Many women that they all go through so much suffering because of their own sexual shame. When I'm saying their own sexual shame, because they're the one who continue to carry that.
Right.
They're the one that, and I'm inviting women here too, if they are feeling any sexual shame or if they have any difficulty in their sexuality, stop blaming the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Just take a look at, yourself and see where, honestly, gut feeling, experience that, what is it that you're suffering from, and come and talk about it.
Yeah. Talk to a professional about
Right.
it. And you're a sexologist. There are sex therapists
Right.
and sexologists who are trained to help men and women.
Men and women.
Yeah, with their sexual shame, as well as, of course, sexual difficulties. I was sitting here and I was looking at one of the quotes that you put down.
Yeah, I got this quote from online,
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know who wrote that. I have no idea who wrote that.
Yeah.
But I saw it and I loved it, and I just copy and pasted that straight from online.
Yeah, so I'm going to read it right now. I like it a lot. It says, a sexual woman is a powerful woman, not in the manipulative, seductress way. That's an expression of a wounded feminine, where she needs to manipulate to feel power. But in a fully anchored, incarnated, sacred queen, standing in her magnificence, owning all aspects of her being, and gently using this power to create more light.
It's beautiful,
That's a
isn't
beautiful
it?
quote.
That's a beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So if we are not feeling that powerfulness, if we are not able to feel that greatness about ourselves, it's because we are still carrying that sexual shame that was imposed on us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
We are becoming the latest flag holder of sexual shame if we don't feel powerful as a sexual person.
Yeah.
And it is us that we're going to give this flag to the next generation, female, our daughters, their daughters. So at some point, this need to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it stops with me, it stops with you, it stops with many listeners who are listening to this.
Mm-hmm.
Sexual shame, it's a poison. It's a poison that contaminates life forever.
Yeah. Sexual shame, or any kind of shame.
Or any kind of
really
shame.
And I'm thinking right now about a quote from Marianne Williamson, who many of our listeners may be familiar with. She's written a number of books and done programs around the area of empowerment. And she said, and I don't have the exact quote, but she said that it doesn't serve us to put ourselves out as less than we are in order to make others feel bigger.
Yes.
She said, what we're here to do is to be the great light that we've come here to be, and be that as an example to others of what they can be.
Yes.
And that's what this particular quote here about a sexual woman is a powerful woman. I think this is wonderfully said, and that sentiment is really what women's liberation, I think, is really about. And of course, there are people who have taken it to the extreme where they go, women's lib has to do with putting men down, and that, of course, is the opposite extreme. Right. And what we're talking about is recognizing the full equality of a human being, and that we all come from both sexes, right? We come from men and we come from women, and that we are all equal as human beings. And to me, that's really the message. Right. Yeah.
Right. And we are fully equal human being also applies to our sexual relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm. Especially in our sexual relationships.
Yes.
We go through all these problems across the day, to go back home to our loved ones, to go back home to our spouse, to go back home to our lovers, right? To be able to show our intimacy, to be intimate, to feel great for being together,
mm-hmm.
to have a peaceful time, to just put our shoulders on each other's, put our heads on each other's shoulders, to just lean towards each other, to just feel intimate. And, you and I have talked about this. intimacy, to me, it's a 24/7 concept. You don't plan to become intimate. Please hear that. I'm going to say it again. We don't plan to become intimate. We're either intimate or we are not. And intimacy, it's a process. It doesn't end. It needs to be worked on. It needs to be, nourished. It needs...
Now that being said, that doesn't mean that we can't set aside time
Yes.
to foster our intimacy.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
Yes, yeah. Right.
So in that way, you can plan to set aside time to foster the intimacy. But as you're saying, intimacy is an ongoing process of feeling safe and connected and open with each other.
Right. So if we want to bring sexual shame in that, we can be our full intimate, lover for our partner. Right. And if we feel, something about it or feel a discomfort somewhere, it needs to be discussed. It needs to be understood. It needs to be evaluated. And many of our sexual problems are based on sexual shame. And sometimes we even don't know how to define it.
Right.
We even don't know where is it coming from. We can't even, understand that. And it's not always, of course, I have to say, through mothers, generational factor. Society also does a good job to give us, sexual shame.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But then again, this sexual shame, again, is based on the culture of the local area where we are, living in. But globally, sexual shame is one of the most profound roadblock to who we are as a sexual being.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, to sum up what we've been talking about today, it's about recognizing that you don't need to be suffering with the sexual shame, or you don't need to be suffering with any feelings of inferiority. You don't need to be suffering even because of the things that have happened to you, because those things can be understood and worked out in your mind so that you can recognize that you now have choices that you didn't make then, that you perhaps didn't have then, and that those choices can be empowering and freeing you. And one of those choices is recognizing that there's help available.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So unfortunately, we are at the end of our program. When we get warmed up, we have to stop. So I'd like to invite you to please join us tomorrow at 9 a.m. for another episode of Relationship Addictions, Trauma, Codependency with Dr. Robert Jaffe and myself. And then next week also, Thursday at same time, about another episode of Human Sexuality. And until then, all you need is love.
All you need is love.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.